Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Everett. So, part 2 of the ankle mobility series. I know part 1, it was some basic stretches, and some of you might have thought it was going to be one crazy trick to, improve your ankles right overnight. It's not that, it's hard work. So the point of that video was to teach you the way you stretch. The technique you use is extremely important, all right? And then also to focus on the front of your leg as well as the calves, and then just stretching and getting more loose doesn't equal better movement or better mobility. You actually have to contract your muscles, focus on control, and build up strength throughout the entire range of motion or amount of flexibility you have. So in this video, we're actually going to build on those stretches. If you haven't watched that video, go do it. We're going to do some pretty weird stuff, some isometrics. So now that we've gotten more flexibility, again, we want to convert it into usable range of motion and get really strong there and get really skilled there. All right, so we're going to be using isometrics, which is a muscle contraction with no visible movement. So if you think about doing a push-up, you've got the negative, the eccentric, you've got the concentric portion where you're actually pushing off, and the isometric, it's not perfect, but think about a plank. All right, so in this position, what we're going to do is load up in our standard calf stretch we already went over. So you're standing, you're by a curb, you're at the squat rack at the gym. We do a 2-minute stretch in that position, focusing on all the cues we went over. Nice deep belly breathing, just trying to relax, get some more flexibility. After that 2 minutes, what we're going to do is actually push our toes into whatever we're stretching on. So imagine if you play drums using the bass drum pedal pushing down, or driving a car. I don't know if you guys ever drive cars ever. It's like that, pushing down on the gas pedal. All right, so we're going to load up to imagine you're doing a calf raise and you're lifting the maximum amount that you can possibly lift with your calves. Go like 20% of that. All right, so it's just a little muscle contraction. If that feels fine, we're going to load up to about 40%. And then finally to about 60%. So continuously contract your muscles nice and evenly to about that 60% mark. Then we're going to hold that for 10 seconds and then stop the contraction. Keep the position, just freeze, relax, and see if you can get a little bit further into the stretch. So some people would call that PNF stretching or maybe a positional isometric. The FRS system I work within calls that a PALS contraction. All right, I go over that in quite detail in my hip mobility course that's available on my website. Go check it out and get it. But again, we're trying to get more neuromuscular connection, increase the range of motion quicker, and actually load up that new range that we don't really use that often because we just got it with a little bit of stimulus, all right, to prepare those tissues to actually start moving. The next thing we're going to do is a little weird. It's the opposite contraction. So we're actually going to use our shin and try to pull the toes closer to the shin. All right, so using your shin muscles, try to pull your toes off of that curb or that squat rack. They're not going to move because we're at the end of our flexibility. All right, same stuff. We're going to load up. We're going to pull. Think about pulling like 20% of your maximum effort, and then 40. Climb there, go like 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, squeeze more, load up to 60%, and then we're going to hold that for, again, 10 seconds, and then exhale, relax, don't move, just relax all the muscles, let them melt, and then see if you can get a little bit further into the stretch. All right, so you could load up to like 100% contraction. I usually don't recommend that for people right away. You will get sore after this, all right? It'd be surprising, but again, you're contracting, you're doing an isometric. If you've ever been in rehab, isometrics are very popular because you get a lot of muscle stimulus, but there's not a lot of motion. In fact, there's no motion, so it's pretty safe, relatively speaking. So you do 2-minute stretches. You would do a circuit of that on either side. It'll take your total work time up to maybe 5 or 6 minutes, but this is really useful for, again, getting mobility, not just passive flexibility or becoming really loose and stretchy, all right? So the next thing we do is we load up in our classic Shin stretch position. We used our yoga block for that. So again, we're going to sit on that, focus on having the feet pointing directly back, actually stretching the shins like we talked about in that first video. The PALS contraction would be actually pushing the feet into the ground, trying to contract your shin muscles. Same stuff. We do 2-minute stretch, then we'd load up that PALS contraction, 20, 40, maybe 60%, hold for 10 seconds, exhale, relax. Maybe see if you can lower that block, get a little more flexibility going on. The rails contraction would be trying to point your toes more, using your calf muscles. Think about being a ballerina and pointing those toes real hard, using the calves, same stuff. Point at 20%, contract the calves, go to 40, and then 60, hold for 10 seconds, and then relax. All right? So we're doing that, again, to improve our movement, our mobility, and the quality of the tissues and the neuromuscular connection. Just because you're more flexible doesn't mean you'll never get injured or you'll have way better movement or athletic performance. That requires control, skill, muscle contraction. So that's what we're actually focusing on. That's what everyone tends to miss, all right? The final thing we're going to work on this video is now rotation, because your joints have to rotate. So just stretching and doing contraction doesn't equal a full range of motion. So what we're going to do here is we'll focus on our right leg first. We're actually going to throw a leg out and have the ankle on the ground. We want enough room to where when we fully point our toes, we're not going to touch the ground. Something else people don't really realize their ankle can do is something called inversion and eversion. That's very, very important. A lot of people don't have inversion or eversion at their ankle, and they roll their ankle and they get like an eversion sprain. All right, so we want to be able to have that range of motion and control it. And on top of that, you have a bone called the talus or the talus. It sits right at the ankle, right here at the very end of the tibia. And if that doesn't move adequately with inversion and eversion, the tibia and the fibula can't splay over that bone, and you end up getting a bone-on-bone blockage. All right, so people just endlessly foam roll their calves, and it's actually a joint problem, a bone-on-bone problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on that joint circle and mix in inversion and eversion. So first thing we're going to do is pull the foot up, and then we're going to think about rotating the arch or the big toe towards the ground. It's almost like you're dropping your ankle. And then with that, we're going to point the foot fully down as far as we can go. Now, this isn't a relaxed position. We're actively pushing down, all right? Gas pedaling down. Then we're going to make a small half circle around the bottom, and we're going to go into the exact opposite position. So now we're going to have the blade of the foot facing the ground, big toe arch facing your face. Then we're going to pull straight up, and you can probably see that where this is going to go is we're going to rotate and have that arch facing down and finish that top half of the circle. So we're trying to make a big circle with the ankle. Now you can see here I'm holding my shin because, as we talked about in the first ankle mobility video, I can rotate my lower leg on my knee. All right, that's very important to be able to do, but I don't want to cheat and do that. I'm locking down my shin. This might be a very small circle or movement for you. All right, we can go both directions. So big toe down, arch down, push, half circle at the bottom. Then we've got the edge of the foot facing the floor, pull up, rotate, big toe arch down, finishing that top half of the circle, and back around. So again, we're using muscle to do that entire circle. I would recommend doing a couple circles either direction each day. These are called controlled articular rotations, or CARs. They're fundamental to the FRS system. I've got hip CARs on my mobility course. These are fantastic. They seem a little silly, like you might have seen someone else doing circles in the gym like this, but they're controlled. You're using muscle. You're being very intentful, and you're making sure you're not cheating or compensating with other parts of your body. Again, they seem simple. Do them every day along with these stretches, and you'll have much better ankle movement. All right, so that's it for the day. In section number 3, we're going to focus on a lot more moving and contracting and actual muscle work. All right, but make sure you're doing the stretches consistently. Make sure you're doing them right. Start adding the pails and the rails, the contractions, and then add in the ankle CARs. All right, for some rotation and some inversion and eversion training. So hope you enjoy it. Use it, train it. See you in the next section.